I have some friends who are joining Roblox, and I wanted to show them some plugins that might make their life easier. So this video is not really intended for an absolute beginner. This is for somebody who's used game engines before and is just looking for some plugins that might help make the workflow a bit more like what they're used to. So some functionality that's sort of missing in the default Roblox editor. The first thing to note is that when you do go get a plugin to add it, you're going to need to go to your toolbox and then go to My Plugins. And any plugins that you've grabbed at the store should be here. And then from here, you can add them. Okay, so I've already got all the plugins I'm going to show you, but I'll send you URL links to them. And then the other place that you'll need to manage your plugins is up here along the top bar. There's a plugins tab. And if you hit manage plugins, it lets you turn plugins on and off. And so if you're like me and you change tasks a lot, you know, I'm not always doing the same thing, I turn my plugins on and off all the time, but it's really easy to use, so it's fine. And then you can use either the default plugin bar or you can make your own custom bar and right click, and then you can add tools, and that'll let you add functionality that comes with Roblox, but it'll also let you add plugins if you want to make, like, you know, bars that are specific to a task. The first plugin that I thought we would sort of look at is a terrain plugin, because it's for sure one of the limitations that I hit most quickly, that there isn't a nice way to move terrain between games just included with Roblox. So if you want to do that, you're going to need a plugin. Say you have an art scene or an art team building you something and then they want to give it to you, you can use this plugin to sort of transfer the file around. If we go to our plugins, there's one here. It just says save load here, but it's a terrain save load. And if I click it, it pops open this box here in the corner. It might show up somewhere different on your screen. I'm always rearranging my windows and my tool panels. So I can just hit save terrain, and that adds this like object to your workspace that has the material colors and the water properties, and then presumably in this thing is the terrain itself. Say I've got that one saved, and then I make some kind of change. So let me go. So let's say I added this lake, and now I don't really want that. See, I had the save terrain selected, and I just hit load terrain, and it came back. You do need to kind of do some naming yourself. I keep that in mind. So I went off of it and I'm just on the workspace and I hit save terrain. Again, now you see it's added a new terrain object, and I can switch between them as I want. And you can directly copy things from this Explorer to another, like if I open a second copy of Roblox to another place, I can copy this terrain thing that it made and paste it right into that other game and then load it up, and that'll work fine. But you can't copy and move around this terrain object that comes with Roblox by default, or at least I've found no way to do it. So that's plugin one. I actually like Roblox's terrain tools fine. When I'm working with terrain, I normally work directly in it and use their terrain tools to build stuff. But sometimes if you're doing really rapid prototyping, or if you're doing stuff that's not organic, you know, you want clearly defined rectangular shapes and things like that, you can use another plugin called Part to Terrain. So in this case, you can just use basic parts. These are just wedges and, you know, the blocks, I guess. And then I open up the Part to Terrain plugin, and everything's turning orange because I'm actually hovering over the base plate. So it's trying to turn the base plate to a terrain. Select the thing we want. We've got grass selected here. And then we can click on the parts, and you'll notice it just converted them right into terrain, and it blends right in with our main terrain object, and that's great. But I did have those other sort of pathways stuck here that I also wanted to change. So if I grab my pathway object, you can see that it's now brick, and I'm just gonna go under the map so I can see the other ones because they're kind of under the terrain. Now I've got like a nice little raised, you know, lot or something. That's pretty good. Part to Terrain is very useful for just rapidly roughing out a landscape without having to muck around with the sculpting tools if you're not comfortable with that. The next tool that I want to show you is also related. This is called the Brushtool. It by default comes with a couple models, but we're just only going to use our own models here. So if you click the model that you want, I've made 3 models here, and hit add for each one. Now, when they're blue like this, they're active models that you're actually using, and then you hit activate brush and you can just paint them out. So if you need to rapidly build a forest or something like that, where you're just trying to quickly throw out a lot of stuff, again, by default, Roblox doesn't have tools that are very good for just placing large groups of things, and obviously up the spacing if you want them, you know, more stuck out. You can scale them, wobble them. It's pretty good. This is like pretty useful for quickly getting stuff out. My only warning for this tool is that it doesn't seem to love packages. You can use it for packages, but it throws up an error over and over. I mean, maybe there's a way to make it work, but I couldn't make it work. You might want to just use models that haven't been made into packages if you want to use this tool. The next tool I wanted to show is the tool grip editor. I actually use a different tool grip editor normally in my games, but that one, even though it was free when I got it, is now like $9.99, which I honestly don't think is unreasonable, but I was trying to give you all some tools that I think the rest of these tools are still free. They let me know if they aren't, and I can try to find you an alternate version. But this version of the tool grip editor seems to be free. If you've made a tool before in Roblox, you might not need this part of the explanation. So I'm going to just duplicate this object here. I'm going to just duplicate my umbrella and add a tool. Okay, it doesn't have to be under a model like this. I'm just doing it so I can see it. I'll take it out of the model after. So add a tool. Part of how just tools work is that they have to have a part called handle to function. We're going to put these under here. So this is all the other parts of the umbrella. And they all need to be not anchored. I'm just going to go shut off anchoring on them. And then you can like weld these other parts to the handle so they'll move with it. So I just hit the little plus and then I type weld, like I grab the weld constraint and I go to where it says part 1 and I select the handle because that's what it'll attach to. And then I copy it and I paste the constraint under my other things. Just so, because they're all going to need to attach to the handle. And then one at a time, I just do this. There are faster ways to weld sets of things, but I normally do it this way so that I can see that they're welded. We can take it out from under this object now. The other thing is, because nothing's anchored, I do need collision on something here or it would fall through the ground. If you're spawning this tool and attaching it to your player in a different way, then you wouldn't necessarily need collision on it, but I'm just going to make sure that all of these have some kind of collision. So for the handle, I'll just leave it as like a hull maybe, and then pieces, we'll change it to hull as well, just so that it kind of has that shape, and then I'll turn collision back on for it. And then on this one, I'll leave collision off because it's just like the alternate color, so it'll get caught up in the other hull. For this pole, it doesn't actually really matter if that has collision either. That should be enough to keep it from falling through the ground. So if we just hit play right now, just doing what I just did was enough to make it a tool. Like if I run over the handle, oops, I ran over both of them. Let me move one of those. If I just run over the handle, it'll put it in my hand, but maybe that's not how I want to hold it, right? And that's what the tool grip editor tool is for. We can just select it, oops, go to plugins, open the tool grip editor. We can just start it, and that puts this like arm on it, and then you can either move it or rotate it, so it's more how you want to hold it. You can see in the preview here how it'll be, right? And then you can just click off of it and it'll take the little arm away. And then if you close this editor thing, but you hit, it does move it to sort of, I don't know if it's 0, 0 or whatever, where it spawns that thing, but you can just move it again. So if I test again, now I'll hold my umbrella at a, more cheerful angle. Now, tool grip editors, like all 3 that I have found, tend to just open themselves. So I normally, when I don't need it, I normally go to Manage Plugins and I find the tool grip editor and I shut it off unless I'm making tools because I don't like it popping open over things all the time. I often also keep the brush tool shut off, right, unless I'm doing terrain. So the next plugin, this one is probably my highest use plugin. To be fair, I'm, part artist, so so your mileage may vary. But for me, I do this all the time. At least by default in Roblox, I have never found a way to just copy and paste the colors and the rotations and the positions of things around using their default tools without like doing it one value at a time, which is horrendously annoying. So if you go to your plugins, this property paste one that I gave you the URL for looks like this. It'll open in a panel. I normally just dock it over with my properties, but you can put it wherever you want. And it has 2 tabs. It can either do appearance or transforms. One thing I should say, I forgot that I made these models. I did this on purpose because I wanted to make sure that I mentioned this thing. If you hold Alt and then you click something, it'll click into the model. So you're grabbing the mesh that has the properties on it and not the model that's the container that holds everything. So hold Alt, then click, then you can hit copy properties, and then you have to do the same thing, hold Alt, then click, and then hit paste properties. The holding Alt has nothing to do with property paste. It's just how Roblox's editor works if you want to click an object that's within a model. And then if I don't want all the properties of something, like if I don't want to take the texture of this thing, but I just want the color, I can just uncheck the other boxes and take just the part I want. Likewise, I can grab a transform. I can either grab all the transforms or I could just grab the orientation and then paste it. Okay, so the next one is a very small plugin. It's very tiny. It doesn't even have a thing that'll show up here in the bar, but I do have it enabled. And all that it does is allow you to emit particles. So this one here, if you'll see, is just a particle emitter that's just playing. And that's great, if your particle is going to be constant. But in a lot of the cases, the particles we're putting in are for juicing something. So it's an explosion or a puff of smoke or something that sparkles that happen on contact or something like that. And those happen in like a burst. It's really hard to tune them if, they're just playing constantly. This plugin, you select your particle and it puts up here in the corner, it puts a little thing that says emit and the number. So you can change this number to whatever you want. And then when you hit the button, it just makes them emit. In your actual game, you're probably going to use some kind of script that you use for VFX that triggers this effect. But obviously, while you're just working on it, you don't have that. So this emit thing is how you can tune your particles and get them working. So this next one is a little bit odd, and I only use it occasionally, but it kind of relates to what I just told you about like holding Alt down to click into a model. If I wanted to just work on this slime who's been made in a model, this is my nice glass slime statue, I would have to hold Alt and then click in to grab the parts, because otherwise I would always grab the external model. And there's this plugin that lets you just convert certain types of objects to other types. Now, I use this one the most to convert between models and folders, but for a scripter or somebody else, you might use, different. It might be helpful to you in a different way. Yeah, so I'm going to just convert this one to a folder. And now if I click on the parts, I can actually just grab them individually. And then when I'm done, I could go select model and convert it back. Now, every once in a while, when you do this, it just won't work. Like the thing will disassemble or whatever. And I haven't figured out what cases those are. But in general, if you're working on something really straightforward, like a model of like a building, it's just got walls and parts, you can do this pretty safely. Go back and forth to work on it. So this next one is again probably only useful to you if you're either building environments out of parts or if you're prototyping. But it is helpful for those things because it can make it quite a bit faster to get something kind of clean looking. So it's called GapFill. It's probably one of the most popular plugins on Roblox. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to combine these. I have a door set to be a negative part, and then I have a regular part. I'm just going to union those. Okay, so we now have part of our house, say, but we want to make these walls meet up cleanly. Now, there's some interesting things about this, like there's two different ways you could kind of fill this gap. So you'll open the gap fill thing. The default settings are fine for what you do most of the time. So if you needed to be able to go inside and outside of this building, I would gap fill it like this. But you'll notice the material is oriented in a funny way, and that has to do with how materials are projected onto parts in Roblox. The projection's in an orientation, right? Like if I rotate this wall, the bricks will go with it. They're not projected in world space. If you don't like this, how the bricks are going a different way, and you're only going to see it from the inside, you could also just connect these two edges, and then at least the bricks will be going the right way. But either way, for just rapidly filling spots like this to build out your map, GapFill is very useful. I've got one more plugin that I'm going to go over, and then I should get a separate plugin list from Chaclapack because coders use different plugins, right? Like the ones I'm showing you are really for when you're level editing for the most part, right? That's going to be the biggest use case for these when you're prototyping out your world. Let me just hop into another game really quick so I can show you how this other plugin works that is very helpful. This is Find the Blob Cats. And this game has save data. That's why I needed to hop into something that has save state. So let me just... If the game's not broken, we'll just try playing it, and then we'll get ourselves some save data. So it looks like I've already found the cats, so that means if I open my inventory, yeah, they say found. Okay. Now, we'll go back over to our plugins, and we'll go into this one called DataDelve. If you know your player key, you can just look that up. I'll just delete both of these ones. So yeah, it's just under like the player data one. Now I can find them again because my save data is erased, and then they could be added again. So yeah, DataDelve is very helpful. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful. I think I'll do another video if I have time to sort of explain just some other keyboard shortcuts that you might find useful and some other features that you can make use of that will help your like rapid prototyped games look better. One I will call out just before I shut off this video is if we go select something, here I'll select something that's laying down. Your move tool by default is in world space, but if you hit Ctrl L, it goes to local space. I don't know if you can see that the arrows there are different. If I wanted to move this guy straight along its axis, then I want to go into local. So that's just Ctrl L. Okay, that's really the end. And I will try to find the time to make the other video with just a few other things that could help get started a little bit more quickly.